Number 230. Yeah, a lot of people out. A lot of people are traveling or with different things coming up. Glad that people be here with the people who are 130. And after this, this world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. They're all expecting me, and that's one thing I know. My Savior pardoned me, and now I would go. I know He'll take me through, though I am weak and poor, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Just up in glory land will live eternally. The saints on every hand are shouting victory. Their songs of sweetest praise drift back from heaven's shore, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us. Bodies, lives, families, word. Thank you for all the many blessings that we have. Take for granted. Take this time out to express the good things to you. Honor you. Be with us throughout this hour study. Help us to put aside worries that the world has for us and focus on too much. Give up those worries, feelings, give them to you. So we can focus on all that you have for us. We ask that you watch over sins. Jesus' name.
Getting the camera all set up.
Okay. We are in the book of Proverbs, and we have been studying different topics in the book of Proverbs, and now we're in topic of the tongue. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the destructive nature of the tongue tonight. We've got this lesson has 25 different proverbs listed. Could have listed a whole lot more. Proverbs has a lot to say about how we use our words. The chapter of the New Testament that is the most exemplary chapter that you could bring up for any of these is James chapter 3. So I want to start actually by reading the section of James chapter 3 that talks about the tongue. So James chapter 3. I want to read these first 12 verses. I get a volunteer to do the first 6. Whitney, do you mind? And then you want to get the second? Okay, go ahead.
Not many should become teachers, my brothers, because you know that we will receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is mature, able also to control the whole body. Now, if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we direct their whole bodies. And consider ships. Though very large and driven by fierce winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So too, though the tongue is a small part of the body, it boasts great things. Consider how a small fire sets ablaze a large forest. And the tongue is a fire. The tongue, a world of unrighteousness, is placed among our members. It stains the whole body, sets the course of life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell.
For every kind of animal, bird, reptile, and sea creature is subdued and has been subdued by humankind. But no human being can subdue the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless the Lord and Father, and with it we curse people made in God's image. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. These things should not be so, my brothers and sisters. A spring does not pour out fresh water and bitter water from the same opening, does it? Can a fig tree produce olives, my brothers and sisters, or a vine produce figs? Neither can a saltwater spring produce fresh water.
So anybody here have a really good handle on their tongue? Just a really good job controlling their tongue all of the time? Anybody? Nobody? This is one of those things that is common to everyone. The biggest challenge, and this is why James chapter 3 says, who can tame the tongue? And a lot of the general truth that we're going to learn about our tongue is looking back at the book of Proverbs and the Proverbs that we're going to talk about. Just because we may never be perfect at controlling our tongue, we can certainly get better. And that should be our goal. We want to become more like Jesus. He was the one who could control his tongue perfectly. He always said the right thing at the right time and knew when to say the right thing at the right time. He was the perfect example of wisdom when it came to how to use the tongue. And if we want to become like him, this is certainly a topic we deserve, that deserves study. This is a challenge for everyone. And so we should all take effort to become better at this. So the first section that we're going to be talking about, and I'd be surprised if we get beyond this tonight, is the destructive nature of the tongue. So first one that we're going to talk about is Proverbs chapter 18, verse 6 through 8. Proverbs 18, 6 through 8, a fool's lips walk into a fight, and his mouth invites a beating. A fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are a snare to his soul. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels that go down into the inner parts of the body. A couple of different things that I see from different translations. New American Standard says that his mouth calls for blows instead of invites a beating. New King James says the same thing. there are some other ideas of in verse 8, the words of a talebearer or a whisperer or a gossip. Other translations use, they go down like dainty morsels or tasty trifles. That they are delicious morsels or dainty morsels. So what are some, so the structure, these are synonymous couplets. These are just straight up comparisons on the self-destructive fool. There's not like a contrast that the fool does this with his tongue, but the wise man does this with his tongue. It's just all bad in 6 through 8. So what are some things that you see in this proverb?
I think in the concept, it feels good for whatever reason, even though it's not. And I think about that in the same sense of like sometimes you eat too much of a sweet thing and then you go, oh, I shouldn't have partaken in as much of that as did. Yeah.
What are the sayings that we say about gossip? All right, spill the tea. Like we use food analogies for gossip a lot. Oh, that was a juicy one. What we use it, this imagery of it being like food that's enjoyable in the moment. We're going to talk a lot more about gossip as we go through there. In fact, this exact verse is in other parts in Proverbs too, just verbatim, connected to other verses. So we'll certainly be talking about that more. What about this fool's lips walk into a fight? Does the fool intend? Is he looking for a fight here? Is he intending? I'm not so certain. It's ignorance. But he just walks into it. The walking straight into a danger that he doesn't recognize. But the second part is his mouth invites a beating or calls for blows. This is almost like a justice type thing, that he is looking for someone to punish him. That there is going to be punishment, either from the person that you insult or actually from the government itself that has the right to punish.
Sometimes someone who's just running their mouth without thinking about they annoy people.
Certainly.
It may not be that anything they're saying is offensive or hateful or anything like that, but you're trying to not be.
Oh, we're going to get to that. There's a specific proverb on that we're going to get to about excessive talking in just a little bit. But yes, it just becomes annoying. But a fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are a snare. Who set this trap for him? Himself. He walked into his own trap, and we're actually going to have another proverb that talks about that you set up your own trap, and it brings your own ruin. This is a what goes around comes around type principle of, if you play with fire, expect to be burned. If you don't think about what you say, it's going to cause problems for you, and it will lead to your ruin in general. So the observations that I had put in here, and I need to make that both black. So there's two great dangers here side by side. You have the careless, contentious speech, and then the deliberately savored gossip. So gossip is almost always intentional. But you're wanting to be liked a lot of times when you're gossiping. You want the person to give you their attention, so you're sharing something juicy so that they can drink it in and share the enjoyment of sharing some a gossip. Yeah.
Feeling in on the gossip, even as a listener, it's kind of cool. You're like, oh, they trust me enough to talk to me enough.
Mhm.
I'm kind of in that neighborhood that gets to hear about what's going on.
Yes.
Well, I was just thinking, if in this verse, is gossip good?
No, it's not. So it tastes good, but where does it go in this verse, in verse 8? It goes to your most innermost being, your innermost body. Like, it's not just something that just is something that you dabble in and it doesn't affect you. It actually changes you. That the danger in gossip isn't as obvious. That the danger is there. It's gossip is easy to hear, it's easy to repeat, but you don't see the bad that comes from it until down the road.
If you don't, and you're only eating sweet food, it will upset your stomach, but then also like what does that sweet, nice thing that satisfied you for a minute eventually turn into not something that is sustaining, to waste, and
Certainly. It's not good for you long term. Certainly. So some verses that this puts in, um, some verses that this might remind you of. Did you guys have anything for this one? So some ones that can be considered for sure are Proverbs 12 verse 13. By rebellious speech, an evil person is trapped, but a righteous person escapes from trouble. That you will be trapped by your own words, getting caught in a lie. You gossip about someone, and it eventually comes back and bites you. Matthew 12 verse 36 and 37, which was mentioned in the first paragraph, that we will be judged by every careless word that we speak. That should scare us. And then 1 Timothy 5 verse 13, Paul warns Timothy to warn specifically the women, the group where he was, about becoming gossips and busybodies, saying things that they should not.
Changing your innermost being. It can start to shape how you view things. So, like, if you get in a habit of gossiping or listening to gossip, or partaking in a whole group of people who love to gossip, you can start to hear when somebody shares something with you as an opportunity of, oh, I'm going to take this back to someone else, versus actually being there in the moment, listening and caring for the person. Somebody can tell you something hard that they're going through, and in your head you're running through those people you're about to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes how you can show up for others.
Absolutely. All right, we've got plenty of more to talk about in this. Proverbs 20 verse 19. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a simple babbler. Do not associate with a gossip. New American Standard. A gossip goes around revealing a secret, so avoid anyone who talks too much. CSB kind of puts it in more of a general, they talk too much. New King James, he who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets, therefore do not associate with anyone who flatters with his lips. So you've got three very different ways that the second half of this proverb is taken, as a babbler, a gossip, someone who talks too much, and someone who flatters. Why should you not hang around people who gossip? According to verse 19. You can't trust them. If you trust someone who is willing to gossip to you, what are they also going to do? They're going to gossip about you, right? If they are someone who gossips, if that is something that they enjoy doing, and they learn something secretive and juicy about you that you don't want everyone to know, don't be surprised if it comes out. So, don't associate yourself with simple babblers. Don't so avoid the types of people. And New King James is interesting. The one who flatters, they are someone who sound very nice when they're talking to you directly, but will talk mean about you behind their back. And if you see them do that to others, and then they're mean to that person to you when that person's not around, how are they going to treat you? This is a choose your friends wisely type of passage. Be very careful of who you choose. There was also in this idea of goes about. Whoever goes about slandering. Is this someone who just accidentally did it once? This is someone who is a habitual gossip, a habitual slanderer, not just a one-time thing. It goes from a diagnosis to a command. Don't just recognize the gossip, but you need to distance yourself. And we're going to talk about how to stand up to someone who is gossiping to you in a little while, but being able to say, I don't mind you, I like you, but the gossip, I'm not going to listen to it. And if it persists, we can't be friends because it affects me and I don't want to listen to gossip and I don't want to share gossip. So please stop. And if it persists, then distance yourself. The logic here is preventative rather than punitive. So when you distance yourself, you protect your own secrets by not becoming a regular audience for someone else's. So the passage that I put in here was 1 Corinthians 15:33. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. That if you're around gossip all the time, is like Tommy was saying, you are what you eat. You are your friends. That your friends will have an influence on you. And if they're constantly gossiping, you will become like them. True.
And then I can recognize it myself. No, that was
Whoa.
not my intention.
Yeah, let's back off.
Let's stop it in its tracks. And it's helpful to be able to call each other out. It's easy to slip it.
Because it's tasty. It's easy. It's very, very easy. All right, I love this next one. For a lack of wood, the fire goes out. Where there is no whisperer, quarreling ceasing. As charcoal to hot embers and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels, though go down into the inner parts of the body. So you recognize verse 22. What about this first part? So this is just general observation, right? What happens to a fire when you don't feed it? Eventually, it goes out. So say there is a culture, say if it's in your family, like you go home to a family reunion and it's all the aunts, all the cousins, and everybody's talking about other people. Like, how do you get, or in a local congregation, how do you get quarreling to cease? Because that's really what the problem. What does whispering lead to? Is fighting. That's the end result of gossip, is strife between people. Either it's slanderous, where it's not true, or it's something that is true that shouldn't have been shared.
tell the truth, but they're not there to defend themselves. So ultimately, it's not a fair conversation, no matter if you're, even if nothing slanderous is happening. It's like you said, even if you're just sharing something that's not meant to be shared, if that person's not there and involved in the conversation, it shouldn't be. It's spreading business that doesn't need to be spread.
So,
You can't do anything to hurt people.
so if you push out the people who are gossipers, who are whisperers, if there's nobody whispering, quarreling just ceases. I mean, that's what it says here. So how do you get to that point? You need to be the person that starts dousing the fire. Like Emily was talking about her friend who said, hey, I think we're getting a little too close to gossip here. Let's back off. You know, I don't want to listen to gossip. I love you, want to still hang around you, but I can't be around the gossip. It influences me and I can't be around it. That is dousing the flame, right? But what is the elevation that's in verse 21? So verse 22 is just no longer feeding the fire. What is verse 21 about? Yeah, so he starts the fire. He's always feeding the fire. He's always looking for a fight. This is someone who's looking to argue, who's looking to pick a fight. There are people who just really enjoy the arguing back and forth. They like to play devil's advocate. They like to talk to this people on this side over here, and then they like to play this side of the room over there. And they like the politics of it all. Like they feed off of that. That's the type of man that's discussed in verse 21. The New Living Translation, of which of course is a paraphrased version. Fire goes out for lack of fuel. Quarreling disappear when gossip stop. A quarrelsome man starts fights as easily as a match lights charcoal or wood. Rumors are dainty morsels that sink into one's heart. So you have these 3 verse units built on this fuel and fire imagery. And the appeal of verse 22, so when you talk about this quarreling that tastes, or not the whispering, it tastes good in the moment, but what are you really doing is you're fueling the fight. You're fueling the fire when you listen to gossip, when you take it in and it goes to your innermost being. Like, you know, several weeks ago, I talked about my favorite Bible class to teach is Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17. And I gave that analogy of imagining you're driving to Tennessee and you look into a McDonald's and you see me sitting there with a woman who is definitely not Megan with my arm around her. And I'm not where I'm supposed to be with a woman that you don't expect. And you don't know that that is the spot where I meet my sister, who lives in Nashville, and where we exchange kids sometimes. I take some of her kids for a few days, but all you see is just me there with a woman who's not my wife. And then you go and tell somebody else about that instead of talking to me. Is that juicy gossip? You think whoever you're telling might be interested to hear about what you just saw? What Seth was doing? I mean, that is something that is tasty. It's something that people would want to hear, but what is that really is fuel to a fire. And this fire is going to be consuming. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the next few Proverbs, of how all-consuming this thing can get, and it can get out of hand where you can't control it anymore. That happened to my dad a couple of years ago. He started a small fire, just burning some twigs on his land, but it caught some grass, and then it started spreading, and 3 different fire departments had to come to the place because the fire just got out of his control and he couldn't control it anymore. And it was starting to head towards people's houses and stuff. It was really scary. That's the way that gossip can be. So the conclusion here is all conflict requires fuel, right? So whether it's gossip, whether it's any type of a fight, how do we resolve conflict? Is we've got to cut off the fuel source. So how do you keep gossip from spreading? So one, you keep your mouth shut. If you hear something, you don't act on it and you don't tell anybody about it. Somebody tells you something about themselves in confidence, don't share it with anyone, right? If you hear something about somebody, one of my favorite things that I heard once, there was an elder at church. I don't forgot who even told me this, but an elder was standing in a congregation, and someone came up and said, "Have you heard about what brother so and so did?" And you know what? And he was like, and then instead of saying, "No, I haven't, tell me," he said, "Well, he's standing right over there. Let's go talk to him." And just grabs him by the hand and takes him over. And he refused to listen to the gossip and actively works to stop it. Of course, that person wanted to stay anonymous. They didn't want to be involved in this. But when you start to share the gossip, you make yourself involved, right? So this also put old forgiven grievances in the past. If somebody apologized to you for something and you say, "I forgive you," that means when you say, "I forgive you," it means you're never going to bring it up to them or to anyone else ever again, and you're going to act like the thing never happened. But if you always bring it up, even though you said you've forgiven them, and you're always bringing up that old stuff again, it's going to cause fights. It's going to cause bitterness, and you're not going to be served by it. So other verses that go along with this proverb, anybody have any cross references with this one? Here are the three that I put down. James 4 verse 1. Of course, that was when I drew that diagram that what is the source of fights and fights among yourself? Don't they come from your heart, from your passions that wage war within you? Titus 3 verse 9 and 10 tells us to avoid foolish debates, genealogies, quarrels, disputes about the law, because they are unprofitable and worthless. Reject a divisive person after a first and second warning. If you know somebody is this guy who likes to fuel the fire, warn him once, warn him twice, and then push him out, because he's not worth the fight that he causes.
Similar thing to what the message of verse 21 is. In Proverbs 15:18, a hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger quiets his passion.
Very good. All right. Number 4. Okay. When words are many, transgression is not lacking. Whoever restrains his lips is prudent. So here's the person that I think Emily was referencing, the person who talks a whole lot. Just the talk, 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 talk. When will you ever stop? Just talk, 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 talk. Right? And when words are many, what is the chances of you saying something wrong will go up just because of the plethora of word vomit that's coming out of your mouth. The chances of you saying something hurtful rises significantly. It's just a matter of statistics at that point. And that's what it's pointing out. When words are many, transgression is not lacking. But whoever restrains his lips is prudent. This second half, is this just talking about someone whose character is quiet? No. Why do you say that?
Just because they're quiet doesn't mean they can be quiet by nature.
Sure.
Not because they're choosing to be quiet. It's just that's just how they are. But when who chooses to be quiet, when they are more outgoing, that's when they have control.
Yeah, that's in the word, he who restrains his lips. He could say something, he has the desire to say something, but he decides not to speak in that moment.
It's like, well, choosing one wisely.
Very much so. Choose what to say and when to say it carefully.
Restraint doesn't always mean that you're silent either, but it means that you're taking the time to think about what you're saying and how you're saying it, so that it's not just careless, excessive speech, but speech with purpose and thought put into it.
In CSB, when there are many words, sin is unavoidable, but the one who controls his lips is wise. NIV, of course, is a paraphrase. Sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues. This is a deliberate choice of, I could say something right now, it warrants saying something right now, but I'm not going to because it's not the most helpful in the moment. So there's a risk when you are overly talkative, right? That when you just babble, 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 on and on and on, Emily says you can annoy people, but also you can say something hurtful because you're speaking without thinking. The warning is about volume, as in like how much you're saying, not how loud you are, but how much you're saying, not just the content. That even well-intentioned speech multiplies the odds of sinning. More chances to exaggerate, to gossip, to boast, or to wound. But the restrains his lips is active self-control, not just someone who is naturally quiet. So some other passages that go along with this. Anything that you thought of? You don't even have to know necessarily the reference, but other passages. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and specifically, Jesus says every careless word that you speak, where you say it without thinking. Right? I know that has gotten me in trouble, probably more than deliberate things that I thought about before I hit the post button or I say out loud. I just say something without thinking. I think we could have quoted this. I mean, it's all of them, but I think it's been every single proverb we've talked about in this whole class is think before you speak and being slow to anger, certainly. Ecclesiastes 5, 1 and 2 is the passage that says, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Better to approach an obedience than to offer the sacrifice as fools do. They ignorantly do wrong. Do not be hasty to speak. Do not be impulsive to make a speech before God. God is in heaven, you are on earth, so let your words be few. This is in reference to being presumptive. You know what God is doing. Being presumptive to know, like, you just need to humble yourself and shut up and listen to what God is saying. Ephesians 4 verse 29 is just that no foul language should come out from your mouth, but only what is good for building up someone in need so that it gives grace to those who hear. All right.
The one who guards his mouth and tongue keeps himself out of trouble.
Well said. Well said. I think we may cover that in the next section, but it certainly goes here too. It can, it certainly. All right. Number 5, a worthless man plots evil, and his speech is like a scorching fire. A dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close men. So you have 3 different types of men here. The first is a worthless man who does some stuff. The second one is a dishonest man, and the third is a whisperer. So this worthless man, other translations call him a scoundrel or an ungodly man. So this is someone who is actively plotting evil, scheming against others. And his speech is like a scorching fire. This is the imagery of, if something is a scorching fire, you're no longer in control of it. You're not going to control the outcome, that it has gotten beyond your ability to keep it confined. It is beyond your control. And that's what this worthless man does. He plots evil and he just lets it loose. But the dishonest man, in verse 28, he spreads strife. What is this strife? That might be a little bit different than the plotting evil. What do you think, Judah?
When you have some and you start it and it's uncontrollable.
Yeah, that's verse 27. Verse 28, this spreading strife. Strife is like the tension is rising, where everybody's about ready to fight, about ready to pop, and you're like, you feel the tension, and this dishonest man raises that temperature, and he's spreading the strife. He's not calming things down, but he's dishonest in this. But what does this whisperer do? Is he separates close friends. The first two are just general truths, but when you gossip, who do you most often affect? Is it complete strangers? Who do you when people gossip, who are they usually gossiping about and to? Like, it'd be weird for me to gossip to people about complete strangers. If I was telling Tommy about somebody that he's never known, never will know, like, yeah, people do bad things. But the really tasty gossip is when I tell Tommy about something that I heard that Mr. Dare did, you know. When we know the third party directly, you know, when we both know them. And that is a really big dangerous thing, is that it has effect on the people that are closest to you. Yes, sir.
Third party that the person you're talking to doesn't know. It may not qualify as gossip per se, but it's still it's bitter speech and we should avoid it because you're just satisfying a bitterness within your heart about it.
Yeah.
We guilty of that. That's just as bad as gossip. It's just a different thing.
Certainly. Yeah, and we can even put it under the guise of, I need counsel about this. I need someone. I just got to tell somebody about this thing that I'm dealing with, and it's a complete stranger. You'll never know. I'm not going to share names, but I just got to tell somebody about this thing that's going on. But you are still telling someone else's business in that.
You gotta evaluate your motivation behind that.
Yeah.
Because I think there are times where
That's appropriate.
you do need advice, but watching your intentions and how you're speaking about it, how you're choosing to share is extremely important. Because there are ways to seek counsel appropriately without letting it get into that bitter spirit or just venting.
Really easy to fall into the just complaining.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the way that New King James puts this? I think it leaves some of the the original wording, that the ungodly man digs up evil and then the perverse man sows strife. You have this imagery of digging something up and then sowing it or spreading it. So you've got kind of an agricultural type analogy going on. And you see it like, once you see it in the New King James, you can go back and see it like in the CSB, they dig up evil and then they spread conflict. You get that in New American Standard again. But you have this idea of you dig up something like a potato and then you then spread the eyes from the potato to grow lots more potatoes. You get this imagery of you're digging up something, you're digging up, you're plotting, and then you just it gets scattered. Then I thought that was neat. See, are there any other? I think we covered all of those. The yes.
When you think about digging old things or things that should be dead up, it just reminds me of 1 Corinthians 13 and the love reporting no wrong, no evil. We're not supposed to keep things as ammo for later, even if it feels like it gives power. So we can keep them from someone hurting us again. It's not how we're supposed to be. God continually lays down things that he could bring against us, but he purposely lays them down and forgives.
Certainly. Cheetah?
Well, I think this is like an evolutionary line of gossip. So somebody plots to do something with someone else, and someone sees it, and they are struggling to hold it, and finally they tell somebody.
Sure. Some other verses that can go along with this. Proverbs 6, verse 16 through 19. There, God lists 6 things that he hates, yes, 7 things that are an abomination to him. One of those is someone who sows discord among brethren. Matthew 15, verse 19, where Jesus says, out of the heart come evil thoughts, false witness, slanders, adultery, and he gives a big long list. But where do these things start is in the heart. And then 3 John, verse 9 and 10, you have where John is rebuking this guy Diotrephes, who has been spreading malicious gossip about the apostles because he wanted to be preeminent. He wanted people to listen to him. So to listen to him, he was spreading gossip about the apostles because he wanted to be first. All right. I found this one really interesting. We got just a few minutes left. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. A stone will come back on him who starts rolling it. All of the other translations are very similar, except from the New Living, which is, of course, a paraphrase version. If you set a trap for others, you will get caught in it yourself. If you roll a boulder down on others, it will crush you instead.
This also applies to our thought life. When we dig a pit of negative thoughts, or we start that trail where we're spiraling.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't relegated only to speech sins. It doesn't say anything about speech or the tongue in this proverb, but it is certainly about you're digging a pit for someone else, but who's going to be the person who's really going to hurt is you.
Gossip specifically, whether or not that person finds out that you spread it, and you feel gross about it. And I think some people fool themselves into not feeling gross about it, but you generally do. Especially due to the consequences.
Does this person intend to get crushed by the stone? Is he intending to fall into a pit? What happens when you start lying. And then to keep this, to cover up that lie, you have to tell another lie. And then you have to keep all of your lies straight. And then you have to, like I was studying with someone, we were talking about David and Bathsheba and just how for a number of months, at least 7 months, between the time he found out that she was pregnant to the time Nathan comes and talks to him. I don't know how long that was. But in Psalm 32, he says it was like God's hand was heavy on him. He just felt that guilt all of the time. Nobody intends that when they do the first sin to be crushed by it. But it gets out of control. And then it comes back to bite you. And that's this, what goes around comes around type of principle that is all throughout the Bible. Judah?
I think it's like you want you want you want to sit to try for others like it's saying, and you need to have a plan and before, and you don't really have a plan.
Can you think of anybody in the Bible who set a trap for others, but then got the punishment that they were wanting the righteous person to get instead?
The one that Esther brought to justice, who was trying to go all the Jews.
You remember his name? Starts with an H. I remember because he got hung. I remember the game Hangman. His name is Haman. Haman. He tries to get Mordecai. He builds a gallows that's like 70 feet tall. It's just absurdly tall. And then he gets hung on his own gallows. Anybody think of anybody else? When?
He was trying to tear down the tower. The lady threw stone on him.
Oh, he gets crushed. Well, he certainly does die because of that. And you think of anybody else who perhaps wanted to throw the righteous guy in a den of lions or something, and then they get thrown into the den of lions. Like, this happens a lot. They set a trap trying to get Daniel killed because they were jealous, but they're the ones who get killed instead. All right. Which ones? Which king?
Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, with Daniel. Yeah. All right. Galatians 6 verse 7 is the whatever one sows, they will also reap. Jesus says, all who take the sword will perish by the sword. 2 Timothy 3 verse 13, evil people, imposters will go on deceiving and being deceived. So like, not only do they deceive others, but they will also be deceived. So, all right. I will note this for next time, which will be in 2 weeks. We'll have singing night next week. So be prepared for that, to have a scripture reading, or we'll be doing some singing. Wow, I made that very large. All right, well, we will stop there, and I'm going to go switch cameras around back in the back. Be right back.